All right, party people on the interwebs. Viva Frei, former Montreal litigator turned current Florida rumbler. Day 4 of feeling like absolute dog manure. I don't know if that's a thing. Dog poop. I feel like dog crap. I think I have a sinus infection, and I'm almost reluctant to go to the socialized free healthcare system in Canada because I'm concerned that instead of prescribing me antibiotics, they might suggest euthanasia to me. Hashtag kidding, but not really kidding. It's day 7 of having not seen the sunlight, and if you go to the weather app, it actually has the balls to tell you that it's snowing. It ain't snowing. It's not snowing. I haven't seen the sun in 7 days. I'm a little cranky, and what makes me feel better than that? My notes to talk about the most recent decision coming out of Maine have now started running because of all the snow, you see. Snow makes notes run. Forget that. The most recent decision coming out of Maine, I need her name, that's what I'm going to have to get. The Secretary of State, Ballot, who's totally objective, is not a Democrat activist posing as a politician, totally has no chummy relationship with Joe Biden, is totally not out there to interfere with elections, but is only out there to preserve democracy by denying Trump to be on the primary ballot out of Maine. The CBS News headline, Maine's Secretary of State disqualifies Trump from primary ballot. This is another stupid decision. And I say stupid because it's monumentally stupid if you read it. People parading on the internet saying this is justice. I don't think they've read it. If they've read it, I don't think they understood it. If they've read it and understood and say it's a good decision, they're idiot partisan hacks. From none other than the venerable Lawrence Tribe, in her decision on December 28, Maine Secretary of State Bellows wrote that, quote, the U.S. Constitution does not tolerate an assault on the foundations of our government, and Maine law requires me to act in response, end quote. Her decision was masterful. Read it. Blah, what a load of crap. The decision, like the Colorado decision that I covered last week, is another decision that is rendered in full awareness of how serious the situation is. This Bellows, she takes her job very seriously, but she's suspending her own order until adjudication by a higher court. From the last paragraph of her decision, given the compressed time frame, the novel constitutional questions involved, the importance of this case, and impending ballot preparations, I will suspend the effect of my decision until the Superior Court rules on any appeal or the time to appeal under 21A Section 337 has expired. And the amount of I's and my's in this decision, my goodness, you would think this decision was all about her, and something tells me in her mind it was. So some people are going to say it's big nothing burgers coming out of Colorado, Maine. I'm starting to say the Supreme Court had better step in and do something sooner than later, because these are overt acts of judicial provocation. They know what they're doing by doing it, and they're hoping that something happens by doing it with this drip torture of judicial overreach after judicial overreach. Now you've got a Democrat Secretary of State out of Maine, in order to preserve democracy, is now deciding who Republicans get to vote for on their primary ballots by declaring Trump is ineligible to appear on the ballot by virtue of the 14th Amendment third paragraph. And lo and behold, all that she does is adopt the logic and the evidence, by and large, from the Colorado ruling. And just to highlight one example of how each subsequent court is piggybacking off the terrible precedent set by the others, footnote 8. Mr. Trump also makes a puzzling res judicata argument, suggesting that because he prevailed in a lower Colorado court, the Rosen challenges cannot introduce evidence from that case against him. Putting aside the lack of any legal basis for this argument, I will assume that Mr. Trump no longer wishes to press it, given the subsequent decision of the Colorado Supreme Court. Let's just start with the most absurd portion of this ruling. Trump filed a motion to disqualify against the totally unbiased, non-Democrat activist player in this, Bellows. Bellows, in her absolute state of neutrality, objectivity, says, yeah, your motion to disqualify me was untimely, so I'm going to dismiss it. But even if it were timely, I would have dismissed it anyhow because I am totally capable of being an unbiased, objective decider here, not a partisan activist running around pretending to be a hero when in fact she's just a coward hiding behind her interpretation of the letter of the law as cloaked and shielded now by the Colorado court. So she says motion to disqualify, untimely. But even if I were to hear it, I would have dismissed it anyhow, because I'm good to go. On Wednesday, December 27, 16 days after he learned that I would preside over the hearing in this matter, and shortly before issuance of my decision, Mr. Trump filed a motion requesting that I disqualify myself due to alleged bias. The motion is denied as untimely. Moreover, had the motion been timely, I would have determined that I could preside over this matter impartially and without bias. My decision is based exclusively on the record before me, and it has in no way been influenced by my political affiliation or personal views about the events of January 6, 2021. What a load of crap for anybody who believes that. First of all, one of the three plaintiffs in this case filed their petition to declare Trump ineligible to appear on the primary ballot under the 22nd Amendment of the Constitution. I'm not sure what that is. I'm going to have to look it up and insert the screen grab right now as to what the 22nd Amendment is and how it could possibly apply. From Britannica, 22nd Amendment, Amendment 1951 to the Constitution of the United States, effectively limiting to 2 the number of terms a president of the United States may serve. It was one of 273 recommendations to the U.S. Congress by the Hoover Commission, created by President Harry S. Truman, to reorganize and reform the federal government. It was formally proposed by the U.S. Congress on March 24, 1947, and was ratified on February 27, 1951, and I still don't know how this applies in this particular case. The 2 other petitioners went with the 14th Amendment, third article, exclusion for having participated in insurrection, and lo and behold, after some thorough mental gymnastics, Shenna Bellows comes to the same determination as the Colorado court. Yes, Trump participated in insurrection. Yes, that article applies to the office of the president. We're going to get to there in a second. And basically, I'm going to adopt the same kangaroo court January 6th committee hearsay evidence that was allowed in the Colorado court into this court, because the Colorado court did it as well. I said once upon a time that this is like the small domino pushing over the bigger domino, pushing over the bigger domino. And then lo and behold, I don't know what that biggest domino represents, but we're on our way to that biggest domino falling. This judge relies on the Colorado court ruling and says, yeah, the January 6th committee report, although hearsay, is perfectly admissible evidence. The meat of Mr. Trump's objection brief is focused on the Rosen Challengers Exhibit 7, the final report of the Select Committee to investigate the January 6th attack on the United States Capitol, the, quote, January 6th report, end quote. Mr. Trump's objections to the admissibility of the report are overruled. Surprise, surprise, there was nothing select about that committee. It was a hack kangaroo court of a committee, and now they're using that evidence in trials to get Trump off the ballot. It's insanity. Shenna Bellows, like the 4 majority hack judges of the Colorado court, also comes to the conclusion that Article 14, third paragraph, exclusion for insurrection, is self-executing, and it doesn't require any other act or legislation of Congress in order for states to unilaterally declare violation of the federal Constitution in order to exclude from the state ballot, primary ballot, a presidential candidate. First, no congressional action is necessary to render effective the qualifications set forth in Section 3. The Supreme Court has described the 14th Amendment as, quote, undoubtedly self-executing without any ancillary legislation so far as its terms are applicable to any existing set of circumstances, end quote. Nothing further required other than one individual saying, yeah, he insurrected, let's kick him off the ballot. That's all that's required. This violent disruption of Congress's duty through a transparently public use of force meets both Professor Maglioca's historically accurate definition of an insurrection and Mr. Trump's alternative definition. I therefore conclude that the events of January 6, 2021, the, quote, most significant breach of the Capitol in over 200 years, end quote, constituted an insurrection. There you have it. Now states get to willy-nilly, unilaterally declare that someone has violated the 14th Amendment of the Constitution to exclude them from the primary ballots, and she does it. But she suspends her own decision, like the Colorado court, because this is not intended to be implemented in real time. It's intended to be an act of judicial provocation in real time. So now that Shenna Bellows has declared the 14th Amendment third subparagraph to be self-executing, you don't need anything else in order to declare it. She goes ahead and declares it. But wait, there's one other little pesky problem that she has to get around, whether or not the 14th Amendment third paragraph even applies to the president. And there was some argument about this as to the fact that by all judicial accounts, the 14th Amendment third paragraph does not refer to the president, does not include the president. It refers to the other offices to which it applies, and specifically does not refer to the presidency. Well, don't worry, because what Trump submitted by way of evidence was that in prior drafts of Article 14, subparagraph 3, they did mention the offices of the vice president and president, but did not include them in the final version, which is evidence that the founding fathers never intended this subparagraph to apply to the offices of the vice president and president. What does the totally non-biased, totally objective, non-Democrat activist Shenna Bellows conclude? The fact that they included the vice presidency and the presidency, the offices of, in the prior drafts, shows that they wanted it to have an expansive definition, an expansive meaning, to be all-encompassing, to include those offices, which they included in the draft, but not in the final version. Let that sink in. Mr. Trump cites an early draft of Section 3 that referred to the, quote, office of president or vice president, end quote, as evidence that the adopted language was not intended to be as expansive. But the Rosen challengers persuasively argue that, 1, the early draft confirms that the drafters both intended the presidency to be covered by Section 3 and considered the presidency in office, and 2, the adopted language of Section 3 contains a much broader catch-all than that which was included in the draft Mr. Trump cites, suggesting it was broadened to incorporate the office of the presidency. This makes good sense. It is implausible that the drafters of Section 3 chose to exempt the highest office in our government from an amendment designed to keep Confederates from positions of power. A lot of people out there are floating the CW word, the Civil War word. It was even it was even trending on Twitter. And people are suggesting that these types of decisions are intended to trigger a civil war of sorts. It's abundantly clear that the U.S. has been involved in something of a civil war for quite some time now, and it's just being waged in a different manner than historical civil wars. But this is an overt act of judicial provocation. An activist Democrat deciding who Republicans get to vote for and using the precedent set by other activist judges to do the requisite mental legal gymnastics to arrive at that conclusion. It is an act of overt provocation. It's suspended, so it will have no impact whatsoever until higher courts rule on this issue. The Supreme Court had better rule on it sooner than later because this is destabilizing for a nation. It's destabilizing for democracy, and more importantly, but probably by design, it's demoralizing. It is leading people to believe that they no longer live in the greatest country on earth, that they have descended into the third world, banana republic, corrupt Eastern European regimes, and I don't know that many people can disagree with that for much longer because that's what this looks like. Supreme Court had better step in, come to the right decision, and preserve democracy, which, lo and behold, is not preserved by excluding people from the ballot. There, I said it. If you like what I do, you know what to do. Like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell, drop a comment in the comment section below. You can follow me on Rumble, Viva Frei, Twitter, The Viva Frei, or on vivabarneslaw.locals.com. Enjoy this weather. I'm going to go make a hot toddy or something. I'm going to have some whiskey. Peace. Conclusion. I do not reach this conclusion lightly. Democracy is sacred, and the highest court of this state has repeatedly recognized that, quote, no right is more precious in a free country than that of having a voice in the election of those who make the laws under which, as good citizens, we must live, end quote. I am mindful that no Secretary of State has ever deprived a presidential candidate of ballot access based on Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. I am also mindful, however, that no presidential candidate has ever before engaged in insurrection. The oath I swore to uphold, the Constitution, comes first above all and above my duty under Maine's election laws when presented with Section 336 challenge is to ensure that candidates who appear on the primary ballot are qualified for the office they seek. The events of January 6, 2021 were unprecedented and tragic. They were an attack not only upon the Capitol and government officials, but also an attack on the rule of law. The evidence here demonstrates that they occurred at the behest of and with the knowledge and support of the outgoing president. The U.S. Constitution does not tolerate an assault on the foundations of our government, and Section 336 requires me to act in response. I conclude that the Rosen and Royal challenges have met their burdens under 21 AMRS Section 3, whatever those articles are. They have provided sufficient evidence to demonstrate the falsity of Mr. Trump's declaration that he meets the qualifications of the office of the presidency. Therefore, as required, I find that the primary petition of Mr. Trump is invalid. Can you get over that mental gymnastics to basically deny exactly that which she claims to want to preserve? Shameless.